a basset hound, and she has a chain, and she can stay outside since it's nice and warm outside. To protect David over several close calls by Saul and even the Philistines earlier within those 10 years. But after David had showed Saul several times, he gave evidence to Saul that he could have taken his life. Twice he could have taken Saul's life. Once in a cave, he could have taken Saul's life, and then a little bit later, a few years later, he could have taken it in the middle of the camp. He and his nephew snuck into the camp. When Saul was in the cave and David was behind him with a few of his men, David was told by his men that the Lord has delivered Saul into thine hand. He's given you the opportunity to kill Saul. Go ahead and take it. And David said, no, how can I lift up my hand against God's anointed? So he did not take Saul's life. Later on, when Saul was within the camp, David and his nephew went into the camp and snuck into the middle where Saul was at. He was sleeping in the center of all these men around who were supposed to be awake and watching and protecting Saul. They fell asleep. David snuck in, and David's nephew said, because of what David said, he's not going to lift his hand against the anointed. So David's nephew said, let me kill Saul. And I love, he's a man of war, okay? He's a man of war. But he said, let me smite him. I will not smite him the second time. In other words, it won't take more than one shot. I'll get it. I'll take care of him right away with one shot. Just let me take him out, David. Saul stopped hunting after David, after he showed what he did. He took a cloak of Saul's, and then also his water canteen. Next morning, he came out and showed that he could have taken Saul's life. And it was after this that Saul stopped hunting for David. Even when Saul was given the opportunity to hunt David again, there were other men around Saul that said, hey, I know where David's at. Saul said, I'm not going after him. He did not pursue after David anymore. He totally disregarded that information. You see that in chapter 27, verse 4. As we find 1 Samuel chapter 30, verses 1 through 6, we'll go ahead and stand and read those passages. We'll read those together if you're able to stand. The Bible says, and it came to pass when David and his men were come to Ziklag on the third day that the Amalekites had invaded the south and Ziklag, and smitten Ziklag, and burned it with fire, and had taken the women captives that were therein. They slew not any, neither great nor small, but carried them away, and went on their way. So David and his men came to the city, and behold, it was burned with fire, and their wives